Okay, you've probably seen a lot of these types of videos on your For You page already by smaller MMA YouTubers such as me. Well, I've been inactive, so most YouTubers are actually bigger than me, but that doesn't matter. But I'm just here also to hammer the point in that, dear UFC, we do not care.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
The UFC's gone downhill in my opinion. It's really unfortunate because it's been so good, like, not that long ago. Honestly, UFC 300 was, in my opinion, the best pay-per-view ever. Maybe it didn't have all the eyes as a McGregor pay-per-view would have, but just the sheer quality, the fun, and the fights, I loved it. And the year before that, and I felt like the previous years were so good for the UFC, especially COVID and after COVID. For me, that's the Usman era, honestly, like during and after COVID, for me, that's the Usman era. But I just feel like promotion of the UFC has gone down so much, and fight nights are dead, by the way. Fight nights are so dead. Like, what? Just look at these fight nights. What is this? We used to have Max versus Yair as a fight night. Please remember, please take a look at the great fight nights we used to have. It was always so much fun watching fight nights. I couldn't even imagine right now getting up and watching a fight night at the Apex. We have to kill the Apex, we have to kill it. It was amazing during COVID, and for some fights it can be good, but we have to kill the Apex. We're in 2024. COVID's like 3 fucking years ago. And why is there only pay-per-views to look forward? And why are they not stacking the pay-per-views anymore? I feel like we've just stopped stacking cards. Like, I know, I get it. I know what Dana's trying to do. He always wants to have 1 or 2 really good fights on every pay-per-view, so we don't have a miss pay-per-view. But you could argue the last pay-per-view with Sean O'Malley and Merab was kind of miss. Maybe it was the main event that was a bit boring, but I was actually very happy that Merab won. I'm not in the camp of Merab haters. I'm glad that he's champ. I'm glad that he's the first champion to actually represent Georgia. And man, speaking of pay-per-views, press conferences are dead. They're fucking dead. Like, there's little beef between the fighters, but honestly, I always thought that's like a very American aspect of MMA and of the UFC. I don't really need fighters to hate each other, but I still love just seeing a press conference where all of these fighters are lined up and we're getting good and interesting questions. We need to bring back press conferences with crowds and with crowd questions. Honestly, because the press has been so boring lately. I feel like that's the UFC's fault. They regulate who can come in and who cannot come in. Man, these journalists are just so afraid to ask a question that could potentially be annoying to like Dana or one of the fighters, and it's just really making this whole thing more boring. And next up, as another point, we got the inactivity from champions right now. Obviously, the first one I think of when I say this is Jon Jones, obviously. I've seen Ilia Topuria get a lot of blame for being inactive, and honestly, he's not even that inactive. Like, him beating Volk is like 7 months ago, and now he's gonna fight Max, so it's not as inactive as some people pretend it is. But man, I hate to say this, I really do. But Islam Makhachev he's gonna be a bit inactive. He's injured, of course, it's not his fault. He's one of my favorite fighters, but I must be real with you, he's not the most active fighter right now. And there have been guys like Khamzat. I know he's not a champion, but he's also not very active, which kind of sucks because he brings in a lot of casuals also. I just feel like we had a lot more championship fights back in the day. And I don't know, I can't exactly back this up, but I feel like belts have started like hot potatoing around a bit more than they used to before. I loved having like an established champion and then a new guy would come in and beat him. But right now I feel like people defend their belt like once or twice and then lose it. And my last point is just, I think honestly this makes the UFC very bad right now. I do think that this is kind of the catalyst, and it is Dana White putting all his eggs in the Jon Jones basket. Now listen, I hate Jon Jones, but it's not his fault. I do hate Jon Jones, don't get me wrong. He's a piece of shit and he's a cheater and he's not the GOAT. However, Dana White putting all of his promotion into the Jon Jones basket, he just completely neglects the other aspects of the UFC. And I think as soon as that abomination of a fight, which is Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic, happens, the UFC will actually go on an upwards trajectory again, because Dana's gonna have to find some new stars and some new ways to keep both us and the casuals entertained. Because truth be told, Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic, the casuals like it, the hardcores don't. And honestly, I'm just I'm sitting here realizing, am I even a hardcore anymore? I haven't watched a fight night in like a year. And I barely watch the pay-per-views. I only watch them at a friend's place because I don't feel like getting up at 4 in the morning at the moment and just watching the UFC by myself. I don't know, that's just not as fun as it used to be. Honestly, I love to do it, but I feel like it's gone downhill. I barely watch the UFC. Maybe it's because I've been watching a lot of football or playing fucking Minecraft, but I used to do those things before, and the UFC has never been as uninteresting to me as it is right now. But as I said, after a low, there's going to be a high, and after a high, there's going to be a low. So I'm looking forward to a future. I'm sure there are going to be some good fights coming up. I'm especially looking forward to that Max Holloway Topuria pay-per-view. And we just need to get Jon Jones out of here, so Dana White will actually realize that there's more in the world besides Jon Jones, and the UFC will hopefully peak again. And yeah, I look forward to wanting to watch pay-per-views again, because I have probably watched more. Okay, this year is almost over. We have like 2 months left, 2.5 with this one. And I'm ashamed to admit that I've probably watched more Lucas Tracy pay-per-view recaps than actual pay-per-views. Okay? So Lucas Tracy has a monopoly over the UFC right now, at least in my book, because I'd rather watch his recaps, especially fight nights. I never watch fight nights. I just watch what Lucas Tracy says about them, and then I like turn it off. Like, you can call me a casual if you like. Honestly, I should change my name to Casual MMA, Casual Hayati. So yeah, UFC is kind of boring right now, but it's gonna go up again. Thank you for watching.